decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues, sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths, untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DN.
Hi, thanks for tuning into WION World is One. I'm Isha Hansbal. A look at the headlines first up. Israel demands sanctions on Iranian missile project. Foreign Minister writes to 32 countries, calling for restrictions after Iran's retaliatory attack. The head of UN's atomic watchdog says Iran has temporarily closed its nuclear facilities over security considerations in the wake of its massive missile and drone attack on Israel. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif met Saudi Foreign Minister King Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in Islamabad. Saudi investments in Pakistan, the top focus. More trouble for Rishi Sunak. Over 50 members of parliament expected to defy Sunak and vote against smoking ban bill today. Rising tensions in West Asia is causing a market meltdown. Stock prices are plummeting as investors fear a wider war triggered by Iran's attack on Israel and the Israeli military's vow to retaliate. Meanwhile, oil prices are surging on concerns of potential disruption to supplies from the oil-rich region. The countdown to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games has officially begun with the lighting of the Olympic flame. Hundreds of dignitaries and spectators attend the ceremony in Greece. A top focus, while Israeli leaders have hinted at retaliation, the government is under heavy international pressure not to further escalate the conflict. The Biden administration has been the most vocal in asking Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to exercise restraint. Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder said that the U.S. does not seek an escalation with Iran. This is after the U.S. supported Israel in shooting down dozens of missiles and drones launched by Iran on Saturday.
Certainly, when it comes to any type of Israeli response, and again, I'm not going to speak for the Israelis, that is a decision for them to make in terms of what they do, if they do it, and how they do it. But again, from a U.S. standpoint, we continue to make very clear that we don't seek a wider regional war, and we'll continue to work towards that result.
Ryder also noted that the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin spoke to his Israeli counterpart 3 times over the course of the weekend. The Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani called for restraint in West Asia. Sudani led a delegation that met officials across Washington, including Biden and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. On the other hand, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that all sides must show restraint to avoid a rising spiral of violence in West Asia. While French President Emmanuel Macron said that Paris will try to convince Israel that they must not respond by escalating. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Iranian counterpart Hossein Amir-Abdollahian held phone talks regarding the tensions between Israel and Iran. Now, Amir-Abdollahian said Iran is willing to exercise restraint and has no intention of further escalating the situation. Wang Yi said that China is willing to stay in communication with Iran and jointly promote a comprehensive, just and lasting settlement of Palestine. The United States is pursuing a deal that would allow for a ceasefire lasting at least 6 weeks and allow more aid into Gaza. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that Israel has moved in a significant way, but Hamas is the barrier to a deal that would see fighting in Gaza paused and hostages released.
Hamas needs to take that deal, and they need to explain to the world and to the Palestinian people why they aren't taking it, because it is Hamas right now that is the barrier and the obstacle to a ceasefire in Gaza.
Now, this comes as pro-Palestinian activists protesting the war in Gaza shut down the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California. Traffic on the 6-lane suspension bridge came to a standstill as several protesters chained themselves to parked vehicles. About 20 people were arrested and were taken into custody. Now, the prospect of Israeli retaliation against Iran for its drone and missile attack at the weekend has West Asia on edge. Iran's political and military leaders have repeatedly warned that they will respond to any Israeli retaliation, potentially triggering yet more attacks. Now, as Tel Aviv responds weighs, in fact, there is more on Israel's potential strike options. And my colleague Rahisha Sehgal gets you more on this.
The prospect of Israeli retaliation against Iran for its drone and missile attack at the weekend has West Asia on edge. Iran's political and military leaders have repeatedly warned that they will respond to any Israeli retaliation, potentially triggering yet more attacks. As Tel Aviv weighs response, here's more on Israel's potential strike options. Well, the Israeli War Cabinet is studying options for a painful retaliation against Iran. Reports suggest that the Israeli War Cabinet agreed to strike back at Iran clearly and forcefully. However, Israel intends to respond in a way that it does not spark a devastating regional war. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly asked the Israeli Defense Forces to draw up a list of targets that Israel could choose to hit that the U.S. would not object to. Remember, Biden told Netanyahu at the weekend that the United States, which helped Israel blunt the Iranian attacks, will not participate in an Israeli counter-strike. Well, hardliners in the cabinet said that Tel Aviv should not waste time with its retaliation for Iran's first ever direct attack on Israel. Well, National Security Advisor Minister Ben-Gvir said, and I'm quoting him here, to create a deterrent in the Middle East, Israel has got to show that it is prepared to go berserk on Iran. Now, let's take a look at Israel's potential strike options. While some hardline Israeli security establishment figures may view this weekend's escalation as a window of opportunity to go after Iran's nuclear facilities, which is the number one option. This option is seen on the high end of the escalation spectrum. As like I mentioned, Iran's key nuclear facility, Natanz, is dug into the side of a mountain so deep in the ground that it might be impenetrable to even the largest US-made bunker-busting bomb. And a direct attack on Iran's nuclear program, that would probably mean end of the ad hoc coalition of Arab states that supported the Israeli defense effort this weekend. Well, as per the foreign policy publication, the Israelis have to be careful not to go too far to anger the biggest weapons patron during an election year for US President Joe Biden. Next, Israel could target a high-value Iranian military leader or hit key sites or weapons depots inside the country, or even the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps headquarters. However, this weekend's retaliatory attacks again show that there is notable escalation risk in Israel going after Iranian military leaders. However, the killing of a high-value target might also allow Israel to bide its time, perhaps for weeks or months, and this strike option is perceived at a level risk of moderate. Well, number 3, Iran hopes to use its network to move equipment and personnel across West Asia to strengthen the country's drive for regional hegemony and perhaps remove Western powers. In recent years, Iran has sought to improve cooperation among these forces to form a more united axis of resistance against mutual enemies. Tehran has relied heavily on its axis of resistance, armed groups in Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria and others. They share Tehran's goal regarding countering Israel and weakening US influence in the region. Well, display of Israeli military might in the region after barely an Iranian drones or missiles succeeded over the weekend could dent Tehran's international credibility. However, attacks on Hezbollah and other groups carries risks of its own for Israel, and its armed forces could end up suffering considerable losses, and this strike option is perceived at a level risk of moderate. Last but not the least, Israel might settle for a low-end response. Tel Aviv may roll out a series of carefully disguised cyber attacks that devastate Iran's military-industrial complex.
Meanwhile, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif received Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud today. Both leaders reiterated their commitment to enhanced bilateral strategic and economic partnership. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister is leading a high-level delegation on a 2-day visit to Pakistan. Now, as the country seeks help to tide one of its worst economic crises in years, according to the Pakistan PMO's office, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif informed the delegation about the Special Investment Facilitation Council and its initiatives to promote investment in Pakistan. While Saudi Arabia's foreign minister conveyed the kingdom's commitment to an enhanced strategic and economic partnership with Pakistan. Prince Faisal bin Farhan's visit comes a week after Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif met with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia and discussed expediting a planned $5 billion investment package which Pakistan desperately needs to shore up its current account deficit. Pakistan President Asif Ali Zardari also met Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud at Aiwan-e-Sadr. They reiterated their resolve to build a strong partnership and further promote economic cooperation. Well, we are now joined from Islamabad, Pakistan by our Pakistan Bureau Chief, Anas Malik. Anas, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif received Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in Islamabad today. Now, according to Pakistani officials, Prince Mohammed told Sharif that Saudi Arabia would invest $5 billion in Pakistan, like we just spoke about. And last year, Saudi Arabia deposited $2 billion into Pakistan's central bank to boost its foreign exchange reserves. Would you, from your sources, know how these latest funds could be allocated in the order of utmost priority? Or simply put, do tell us what is on the agenda here.
Well, on the agenda is economic cooperation. This visit was planned ahead, and this just comes a week later after the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was in Saudi Arabia. So it is an all-important visit which has a lot of significance. Now, on the agenda is one thing: investment. That's that. Given the economic condition that the Pakistani side is currently facing, there are plans that go ahead with regards to the Arab American oil refinery that Saudi Arabia is to set up in Gwadar, or with regards to other investment opportunities, especially in the fields of agriculture and water resources. That's on the agenda. He has met the Prime Minister and the President and is expected to meet the Army Chief as well. Isha?
Okay, thank you so much, Anas, with those updates. Moving on, Chinese president has said on Tuesday ties with Germany would continue to develop as long as the world's second and third largest economies sought common ground. Xi Jinping's remarks come amid complaints by the EU about Chinese goods flooding the bloc's markets. Xi Jinping told German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Beijing, "We must view and develop bilateral relations in an all-round way from a long-term and strategic perspective." Scholz's 3-day visit to China was his first since his government launched a de-risking strategy last year to avoid relying excessively on Chinese suppliers. His visit also coincided with EU concerns about the threat to European businesses from Chinese goods, including EVs and other green technologies, flooding its markets. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has explained about China's overproduction being unfairly supported by massive state subsidies. But Scholz has been cautious about pushing away China, an important market for Germany, saying the EU should not act out of perfectionist self-interest. The competition between China and Germany ought to be fair, however, Scholz said in Shanghai on Monday. The trip to China by Scholz has taken him to big Chinese cities, including Chongqing, where he visited German auto supplier Bosch's hydrogen fuel cell plant. Scholz was joined by Mercedes-Benz chairman Ola Källenius and BMW chief executive Oliver Zipse, underlining importance of Chinese market to Europe's largest economy. Now, analysts say China will be mindful that an escalating trade conflict with Europe could push capitals like Berlin and Paris closer to Washington. Now, Beijing has economic leverage here, particularly in green technology, but the risks of weaponizing that leverage are high. All right, 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal is making his eagerly anticipated return to tennis today. The King of Clay will be in action in Barcelona as he looks to move on from a hip injury that kept him on the sidelines for 3 months. Nadal is a 12-time champion at the Barcelona Open, and the tournament could kick off his farewell tour. Remember, Nadal said last year that 2024 would most likely be his last season in the sport. The Spaniard will face Italian Flavio Cabulli in the first round, which will be his first ATP Tour match since January. This is also his first professional tie on clay since his 2022 French Open triumph. Now, after missing almost the entire season in 2023 with a hip injury, the 22-time Grand Slam champion made his return at the Brisbane International in January this year.
I'm in a different perspective of my tennis career, in a different momentum. I'm just trying to enjoy every moment. No, I was not able to spend a lot of days on the tour last 2 years, so just trying to enjoy every day that I am able to to play with the guys in a professional level. That means a lot to me.
However, Nadal suffered another setback. He sustained a muscle tear near his hip during the defeat to Jordan Thompson in the quarter-final and was forced out of the Australian Open. Nadal played an exhibition match against world number 2 Carlos Alcaraz last month in Las Vegas. The Spaniard lost that match and subsequently withdrew from the Indian Wells Masters. And he most recently also pulled out of the Monte Carlo Masters. The Spaniard has around a month to get himself in peak condition for his favourite Grand Slam, which is the French Open. The Spaniard has won the tournament a record 14 times.
The greatest.
I don't know what can happen in the future, but today I'm facing this as if this will be my last participation.